Good morning, church, and welcome once again to your own homes. We are joined once again by Milo, who has some news for us. So, Milo, I understand that you are moving. You're moving to Washington, D.C. Well, what are you going to do there? You're going to be a motivational speaker. Well, that's excellent. Well, hey, Kent, how are you doing?
I was just doing my laps around the building.
Oh,
I saw your car here.
well, great. Well,
I get to meet Milo.
yeah, come on in, and you can join with us and see Milo here. Well, Milo, we're going to miss you. I'm really glad you've been part of our congregation for this brief period of time. And Ken, I'm glad you're here too.
Yeah.
Well, Milo, Kent, and Doc Moody, glad you all are here. Glad you could make it. Doc Moody, I particularly want to thank you for being here. No, don't get up. It's a puppet. But the doctors of... the doctors and the nurses and the first responders. I think for the year 2020, I think we can probably all agree that they have been revealed to be the heroes of our time. I really love this video I came across in preparing for this sermon. It is a group of doctors in China who all surrounded this patient in order to sing happy birthday to her. She had coronavirus. And that's why they're dressed as they are, with all that gear all over themselves to protect themselves from this potentially lethal disease. But they didn't want her to feel alone. So even though they had to wear all this getup, they went in to care for her, not just her body, but because she was having her birthday under these circumstances, they wanted to care for her heart, for her soul. These are the people who rush toward danger, toward the threat, toward the disease, who go into overworked hours and terrible circumstances and terrible burdens to care for people who are fighting and on the edge of life. And every day they surround themselves with the very thing that could end their lives. It's why they have to wear all of this gear, all of this protective equipment, which really makes their job harder, because people who go into these caregiving professions go in because they want to care for people. And that doesn't just mean they want to make bodies well, but there are an awful lot of these doctors and nurses and ambulance drivers who go into these jobs, the paramedics. They do it because they want to care for people. And that means caring for the person inside of that sick body. All of this getup makes it harder. And one of the ways I know that is because this is my sister, who is a nurse on a COVID floor in a hospital just outside of Washington, D.C. You see the getup that she's wearing there? She sent me this picture because she's like, can you believe this? She's got a respirator-style mask on, and she wears a hard helmet with a big old face shield. Melinda talks to me about how hard it makes her job to look like this. She goes in and sits with people who are often in delirium or who are sick with other things that makes it hard for them to think. And the person that's with them, perhaps as they are dying, looks scary. Maybe like a monster from Doctor Who. She doesn't want to do that. She wants to care for these people. And so she dresses up this way because she has to. But what she really wants is to be able to do good for them. Do everything that she can to support their bodies and help them have a fighting chance at getting well. She's caring for them. What would make somebody run into a room, go into a room where there is a disease that all of us have been sheltering in place to avoid? Now, I can't speak for every doctor or every nurse, But I can speak some for that woman because I know her. And I know that part of it is because she discovered in her own temperament that this is what God had made her for. But part of it also is because she loves very much, another healer. She's very drawn to healing because so was he. It's what he was known for, isn't it? It's one of the things that marked who this guy was, is that he would go from place to place and that people who were sick would get better while he was there. One of my favorite healing stories in the gospel is the one about Jesus didn't even mean to do it. He's had this guy come to him and say, my daughter is at the edge of death, but you can make her better. So please come and heal my daughter, please. And while he's on the way, as there's crowds pressing in around him everywhere, this woman who has been sick for so long, spent everything that she had on physicians and got no better, but instead she got worse. She thought, if I can just touch him, not even him, just the hem of his garment, I'll be well. That's how much I trust him. I know he can make me well. And so she reaches out and she's right. She gets better. Jesus says, who touched me? And they're like, yeah, there's people all over the place. And he's like, no, I felt power go out of me. And she comes and she said, I said in my heart, if I could just touch your garment, I'd get better. And he says to her, your faith has made you well. Go in peace. Amazing power. He didn't even mean to do it. Such a wonderful, powerful healer. How many times did he do stuff like that? Well, honestly, we don't know. I went through the Gospels and I counted, a page at a time. I looked through to see, and I won't tell you that I did a perfect job. I did the best I can. That I looked to see, okay, how many healing stories are there? I'm not positive that I got them all, but I think it's about 35 different healing stories. Now, in order to get that number, I should tell you that I excluded the times when the person was dead. I didn't count those because I think that's a little more than just a healing. A resurrection is a bigger thing than just healing. So the person receiving healing needed to be sick, but not yet dead. And then the other thing that I excluded were the word therapeuo, the word for healing, that it shows up in exorcism stories. But if it's an exorcism, I tried not to count those either because that's something else. So I came up with 13 healing stories in the Gospel of Matthew, 10 in Mark, 9 in Luke, and just 3 in the Gospel of John. Now, but that doesn't mean that there were 35 occasions on which Jesus healed people, because there were times. And how many people did he heal? Well, in some of those stories, there's more than one. But then there are stories like this. In Matthew 4, verse 24, it says, so his fame spread throughout all Syria, and they brought him all the sick, and those who were afflicted with various diseases and pains, and those oppressed by demons, and those having seizures and paralytics. And he healed them. That's a ton of people getting healing there. Or Matthew 8:16, that evening, they brought to him many who were oppressed by demons, and he cast out the spirits with a word, and he healed all who were sick. Or in Matthew 9:35, and Jesus went throughout all the cities and villages, healing every disease and every affliction. Or Matthew 15:30, and great crowds came to him, bringing with them the lame, the blind, the crippled, the mute, and many others. And he put them at his feet, and he healed them. And I think it's safe to say that people, when they thought of Jesus, one of the very first things they thought of is his ability to heal. It's one of the big things that he did. So what's the point? What is he pointing to by what he's doing here? Well, I think part of it is to build faith in him so that we could see his ability to work miracles and believe that he is God, that he's master over sickness and disease. But I think that ultimately what he's doing is he's showing us what the world will be. Jesus is the invasion into the cursed earth of uncursed reality. Jesus is God come among us. And what will happen at the end of time is that God will invade all of reality and drive away every bit of evil and death and curse and sin and all of it. And so what Jesus is showing us in his healings is that when the new heavens come and the new earth is here and we walk on that ground, well, there may be people who are in this reality who are doctors, but when that happens, they'll have to find some other vocation because doctoring won't be necessary anymore, because perfect life and perfect health are found in Jesus Christ. One day, one way or another, all those who trust in him will find that he has made all of us entirely and perfectly well. And though it may be disease that we have to contend with in this earth, and though he may not heal all of us here, when the resurrection of the dead have come, we will all be well. But I am finding in this time that I am wrestling with another kind of disease. Wrestling with it in myself, wrestling with it in those that I care for, and I'm seeing it in people who allow me to work in their hearts and lives, and also through medium like Facebook and conversations that I have with people who are far away. I'm seeing across this whole country. This period of lockdown and quarantine and social distancing has put a very heavy weight upon us. And I am seeing things revealed in us that are hard to deal with. I put on Facebook the question, what has been the hardest thing for you to deal with? Almost to a person, what we responded with is the idea that the hardest thing about all of this is loneliness. The longing for other persons to be in our lives, but they can't. We are discovering that we are very much alone and having to be distanced from people. For some of us, that means being in family, but for some of us, we're housing all by ourselves and carrying the burden of ourselves in a new and different way. What's happened, one of the big costs that people are running into is that they must see people that they love from beyond a pane of glass. People that they would normally hug and hold close. They can't do that right now because they love those people enough to want to make sure they don't expose them to disease. So they see them and they are so close and yet they are so very far away. All of this loneliness, for some of us, is revealing something somewhat creepy. It is an eerie kind of loneliness that COVID-19 has brought upon us, where we are alone with ourselves and feel the great weight of our own brokenness and weakness as the pressure of it all pushes down on us, the strangeness of the uncertainty in the world around us, the uncertainty of the economy, and the uncertainty of when will things get back to normal, will they ever get back to normal. That's an awful lot of pressure, and it pushes down on us. I see it in the weight that is showing up in an awful lot of families. I feel the burden in my own family life as I carry this much heavier workload than I'm used to. And I see my family a lot less than I would like to. I feel lonely, even though they're right there. I'm so tired. Connecting with them is hard. Hard on them and hard on me, and we're all feeling it. My family is relatively healthy. There are families that are feeling this burden in a much worse way. If there was a fracture before the pressure was applied, across this country, there are a lot of families really struggling under the burden of it all and feeling the pain. And some families are coming apart. counselors across this nation are dealing with an increased workload, an increased clientele as people struggle with it all. I wouldn't suggest for a moment that what that means is that, well, if you're feeling a burden, it's because you're an awful sinner. I don't mean to imply that. But I think that one of the things that all this pressure is doing to us is it's revealing to us that maybe we're not so well inside as we thought. The weight of anxiety is very heavy to bear, and I've been feeling that weight. The weight of being a sinner is worse, so much worse. As I look at the stories of Jesus healing people, and I see the way that he heals them in an instant, in a moment, they go from sick to well. And in fact, his healing ability is so strong that sometimes they go from dead to alive, and it all happens in a moment. I know that what I need is his healing power to be at work in me in these other things too. And I wish that I could look and find obvious examples of where Jesus does that too. Well, church, I think I've found one. You see, we need exactly the same healer to help us with things like loneliness and anxiety and all of the burdens that we carry in this dead and dying world. And as we face our own dead and dying nature, we need his healing. We need him to be our physician. But the healing that we receive in this regard, the healing that comes to us with respect to our sin and comes to us with respect to our burdens that we bear here, the healing that he gives with respect to those things is different from the healing that he gives with respect to physical illness. With respect to physical illness, we are healed in a moment. With respect to this, I would like for us to take a look at a patient that Jesus cared for, not in a moment, but over a long period of time. It's a man who came to Jesus not because he felt ill, at least not physically, but because he was sick spiritually. A man in the Gospel of John named Nicodemus. When Nicodemus first meets Jesus, it is under the cover of darkness. And I think that is very important to the story. It's crucial to understand that he comes to him at night. Why is that important? Let's look at the story. Now there was a man of the Pharisees named Nicodemus, a ruler of the Jews. This man came to Jesus by night, and he said to him, "Rabbi, we know that you are a teacher come from God, for no one could do these signs that you are doing unless God is with him." Do you though, Nicodemus? Do you really know that God is with this man? If so, why are you coming in the dark? The text doesn't actually tell us why he's coming in the dark. It just tells us that he came in the dark. But it points it out here and at the end of the gospel in such a way that I think it's saying, now don't miss this. This is important. Why come under cover of darkness? Well, that's exactly why. Because he wants to be covered. He wants to be hidden. There is something about the nature of sin that drives us to hide. We aren't safe with one another, not unless Jesus stands between us. One sinner mistreats another. It's what we do. And we do it because the other is a sinner. We see the sin, and like a hen, like a group of hens that see just a little bit of blood, we will pick and attack and hurt one another. Nicodemus knows the crowd he's a part of. He knows he's a ruler of the Jews, probably one of the Sanhedrin, along with that other crowd of people that will eventually put Jesus under trial to his death. He's part of that group. He knows who they are. I don't know this for sure, but I like to, in my more charitable moments toward Nicodemus, I like to think that the reason that Nicodemus is coming to him by darkness is he's wanting not only to protect and preserve himself, but to protect Jesus. He knows the crowd he's a part of, and he's seen enough of this guy to know that, boy, he's special. And eventually, this kid, this young man, is going to draw unwanted attention, undesirable attention from the crowd that Nicodemus is a part of. And he knows good and well what they can do. I like to think that Nicodemus has come in darkness in part in an attempt to save his Savior. But I don't think that's all of it. Because I know good and well the need to hide. I know what it is to have a whole part of myself that I don't want anybody to see. I think Nicodemus knows good and well that if that other crowd sees what he's doing, they will reject him, they will attack him, they will mistreat him. And isn't that what sin tells us? If anyone knew, if I let it out, who I am and what I've done, what I'm doing, if I let anybody see that, well, then they'll mistreat me. And too often, brothers and sisters, we have given one another plenty of reason to believe that. We have way too often attacked sinners as if we weren't. It's part of the sickness. It's part of the thing in us that needs to be healed. He comes, though, Nicodemus, because I think he knows, okay, this young man, God's with him. I think he tells him the truth. No one could do the things you're doing unless God is with you. And I suspect he had a whole speech planned, that he was going to go in and help Jesus find a more effective way to be able to negotiate the dangerous places that were Jerusalem and the Judaism of his day. He doesn't get to it, though. None of us are really in charge of the relationship with Jesus. We need to always remember that when we come to him, if we come to him with any vulnerability at all, he will surprise us, which is exactly what Jesus does here. Jesus answered him, "Truly, truly, I say to you, unless one is born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God." Nicodemus didn't see that coming. You have indeed come to a person who is with God. In fact, you have come to God himself. Now, here's the thing, though. You need to understand that your righteousness isn't going to cut it. Where you've gotten to in life, it's pretty good if you measure it against other people around you. In fact, even if you measure against the other rulers of the synagogue, none of the rest of them are here, are they? So you're doing all right, as well as a sinner can. But there's still a lot in you that's very, very sick. You need to start over. And if you want to actually be with God the way that Jesus is with God, then Nicodemus, you're going to need a whole new birth. Nicodemus, I don't think, was ready for that. The kind of start over stuff. Come and be a part of my group. Come and be with me. Be in me. Be one with me that Jesus offers. The rebirth that he's trying to give, he's not prepared for that. And so he immediately becomes dismissive and derisive of it. Are you kidding me? I mean, what am I supposed to? I'm an old man. Am I supposed to go back to my mom and be born again? You're a crazy person. Don't throw that at me. But Jesus, I think he's used to people being evasive. I mean, I am. If I'm honest with you, then I'm often dishonest with him. I don't want him prodding around in my sick soul. I want him to fix it the way he fixes people who are dead. Just say a word and I'll be better. It's not how he tends to work with this, though. He goes in and he puts his finger right in the place that you came to him to get healed. The thing that you're ashamed of and you don't want to mess with. He comes in and don't you know that Nicodemus, when he came to Jesus, he had to be knowing, I've gone so far and yet I feel so incomplete. And I wish that I could just start over. And so Jesus leads him to that very place, the place he knows he needs to be. Well, doesn't he do that to you? Doesn't he do that to me? Isn't that how he always works? Coming into the spot that we wish that he'd leave alone. And like Nicodemus, when we feel that spiritual pressure applied to us, tell the truth, escape the trap. Don't do this again. Don't you want to evade it? It's not really God, or that's not really happening to me, or that cost would be too high. I won't do it. Don't worry. He's used to it. He knows how to deal with that. He does it to Nicodemus. He says, don't marvel that I said to you, you must be born again. The wind blows where it wishes, and you hear its sound, but you don't know where it comes from or where it goes. So it is with everyone who's born of the Spirit. Jesus is not going to let Nicodemus avoid spiritual reality. He's going to bring it right back. You know that I wasn't talking about being born again with your mom. Don't throw that perverse and nasty stuff at me. I was talking about spiritual birth, and you knew it. See, Jesus always tells us the truth about ourselves. He tells us the truth about God, and he tells us the truth that we need to hear in order to be well. And he's not going to allow us to try and take control of the situation. His whole discussion about the Spirit here is that we are not in control. It's God that does all this to us. The big thing that we do is like the leaf rattles in the wind, so we must become receptive. We must let him do his work with us. And Jesus leads him out of one kind of wonder and into another. And when Nicodemus hears these things, I think he is finally ready to begin his therapy, because at last he asks a genuine question. How can these things be? Is the very question that I ask. Jesus, I want to be new again. How can I get there? How do I find my way to wholeness? I'm struggling and I'm afraid. I'm sad and I'm scared. I'm evil and I don't want to be. But you say I can be good. How can these things be? How do I get there? Please help me. Jesus answered him, you're the teacher of Israel, and yet you don't understand these things? Why is he asking him that? Well, as one who's charged with being teacher, I think he's constantly reminding us, remember, it's not up to you. And if you put your confidence in yourself, you will very quickly discover that you run out of soap. You don't have the strength to heal yourself or anybody else, but Jesus does. He's saying, let me in and I'll help you. Don't put your confidence in the things. You have this place of status and prestige among your people, Nicodemus. Well, don't trust in that. Trust in the things that lead you to the wonder of God. He says, truly, truly, I say to you, we speak of what we know and bear witness to what we've seen, but you don't receive our testimony. If I have told you of earthly things and you do not believe, how can you believe if I tell you of heavenly things? See, everything that he just talked to him about, this whole born again thing, in a way, that's a heaven thing, right? You're born again so that you can enter the kingdom of heaven. This is kind of what it's for, but where do you do it? It's a thing tied here to the earth. It's being born again so that you can be subject of heaven, so that you can be citizen of heaven, but you do it here. But there are things waiting, things so wonderful. What you will become, Nicodemus, what you will become, Christian, if you could see it now, if you could see what we will be, we will bear so much of the image of God, you will be tempted to worship. The completely redeemed human is a good and wondrous and beautiful thing. Everything that we will do is good all the time. How can we bear the weight of all of that? This encounter, this one encounter with Jesus, is all it takes to begin the healing of Nicodemus' soul. Because I think that once this thing happened to him, it never let go of him again. And one of the things that the Gospel of John does for us, just that story is filled with so many beautiful truths to explore. And I'm so glad we have that story. But what happens to Nicodemus through the rest of the Gospel shows that Jesus wasn't done just then. That Jesus, by the Spirit, is going to work through Nicodemus's heart so that he might become a person who believes. So that he might become a person who believes in the God that sent the only begotten Son, so that whoever believes in him might not perish but have eternal life. And he might actually come to believe that. And so what you see as the thing goes on, remember, sinners have to hide. But Nicodemus will progressively take steps out of the darkness and into the light. There's a time when Jesus is out teaching and the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the people who were in charge, they'd had enough, and they sent people to go arrest him. And when those people come back, they come back empty-handed. The officers then came to the chief priests and the Pharisees, who said to them, "Why did you not bring him?" The officers answered, "Well, no one ever spoke like this man." And the Pharisees said to them, "Have you also been deceived? Have any of the authorities of the Pharisees believed in him? But this crowd that does not know the law is accursed." And they're saying, none of us have trusted him. We know our scriptures too well to believe in that guy. He doesn't line up with our expectations at all, and we're the ones who know. So you ought to listen to us. None of us are going after him. Except sitting right there with them, or standing right there with them, is one Nicodemus. He's like, have any of them? Well, maybe one of us has. I mean, maybe I have. I don't know. I think maybe I have. And so Nicodemus, the one who hides because it's not safe to expose who you are. Because it's not the one who hides because he knows he's a sinner and he knows these people are too. Nicodemus, who had gone to him before and who was one of them, said to them, "Does our law judge a man without first giving him a hearing and learning what he does?" He's one of these sinners, one of these people who don't know that they're sinners. One of them. And he says, is this really the way that God wants us to behave? That's a step out of the dark. That's a step into risk. And boy, does he ever pay for it, because they attack him. What, you want him to search the scriptures, man? You know better they just come at him. Like he knew they would, because he knows what they are, because he knows what he is. And yet, he has received enough healing that some of the cowardice that drove him into hiding has slipped away. You see, well, this is what Jesus does, a bit at a time. We change from one kind of person into another. We're transformed over time, from one degree of glory to another. We take on the change. We take on Jesus's ways, Jesus's character. And those who bear Jesus's character, they can't hide in shadows. They don't do that. We grow to the point where we don't have to be afraid. Of course, the full picture of this waits. I don't know that we ever see the full picture of the redeemed and perfected Nicodemus, and I don't mean to imply that. Someday we'll get to see it. When we're in heaven together, we'll see the perfected Nicodemus, and won't that be great? But even before then, but after the death of Jesus. And I think that's important, because I think there's a message in that. Jesus has to die in order to heal us. If he's going to make us whole, then he has to take away our sickness, and he does it by taking it into himself. And each time he draws near to us, he draws near as the wounded healer, the one who died and is alive again, and yet still bears the stripes and the scars. He's the one who draws near to us, and he calls us to take and let our sickness into him. Well, it is after he dies that we see this beautiful picture of Nicodemus even further down the road. After these things, and these things are the death of Jesus, Joseph of Arimathea, who was a disciple of Jesus, but secretly for fear of the Jews, asked Pilate that he might take away the body of Jesus. And Pilate gave him permission. So he came and took away his body. Nicodemus also, who had early come to Jesus by night, came, bringing a mixture of myrrh and aloes, about 75 pounds in weight. So they took the body of Jesus and they bound it in linen cloths with spices, as is the burial custom of the Jews. See, here's Nicodemus. And remember that it's his buddies, the people he knows he has to hide from, the people that he was one of them. They're the ones that conducted the first trial of Jesus Christ. And they have decided that Jesus should die. And here's Nicodemus walking away from them and walking to the body of Jesus. Now realize, at the time when he's doing this for Jesus, he has absolutely no way of knowing that Jesus is going to come back from death. As far as he knows, there's not thing one that this man can do for him. He doesn't care. He's going to do what he should do. He steps out into the light to be a good man. How do you do that? I want to do that. I want that kind of courage. I want to be able to stand up to powerful forces that have just acted very murderously. How do you have such courage? Well, the answer isn't in Nicodemus. It's in Jesus. Jesus' healing power to take those who are afraid, those who bear the anxiety and the worry and all of the sorrows that this world drops upon us. And he's able to heal all of our infirmities. He's able to heal our loneliness and our anxiety and our fear. He's able to heal our families and our trouble that surrounds us on every side, because he is able to heal our sins. You see, the doctors who surround us right now, they rightly protect themselves. And I don't mean to criticize them. They're doing exactly as they must. If they don't do it, they'll spread the disease. But this man who came among us, he came among us unprotected. And on the cross, every wicked thing that we are leached out of us and into him. He took it in not to spread it, but to destroy it. And as we meet with him in the scriptures and in our meditation and in our prayers, as we meet with him in our worship and as we take the supper, as we meet with Jesus Christ, we are being healed. Jesus saw himself as physician. He said, "Those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. For I came not to call the righteous, but sinners." We who know that we are in need of healing draw near to the great physician, and we find by his great mercy, we are made well. Church, God heals us in every way and from everything so that we have perfect spiritual health. And, I think that we've lost Kent. I think he may need more rest and maybe a bit of healing himself. But Milo, it has been really great having you with us. We are going to miss you. Thanks for sharing your time with us. God bless you, everybody.